Awesome. Well, happy fall, everybody. Hard to believe we're already in November. I know.
Yeah.
I know. Really good information that I had yesterday at the RE Colorado, the annual shareholders meeting, just some of the things that are going on for us next year. I'm really excited about it. We've got an MLS system that's looking out for us. So there's one product that they haven't announced it yet. It's sort of hush hush, but it's called Nestfully. And it's a new product that they are going to be using with our data, our listings, to get leads back to you, the listing agent. It's a lead system that the MLS is putting in place. So anyway, kind of cool. Good stuff going on. And of course, everybody's doing an economic review, saying, what the heck is going on? And I think that we're all very well aware of kind of the shift we've had. I hate that word, but the shift we've had in our market. So definitely it is a really, really good time to look at Big Y, because as we move forward in our careers, it's more important every single day that something drives you to get the things done that you need to get done. So I want to start out, Big Y is different for each and every one of us, and it changes sometimes. So first of all, does anybody have a Big Y right now that you've articulated that really resonates with you and drives you?
Yes, just to jump in, this is something that I mentioned a little bit in our group meeting yesterday when you were actually with RE Colorado, but I have been a renter for the 6 years of my career, and I've just scheduled an appointment with Aaron German to get pre-approved myself. So for me, a Big Y is so I could eventually purchase my own home as a millennial, and then kind of gained a little bit. I'm already learning like a little bit more perspective of what buyers go through just in going through the thought process and the planning of everything, and getting all the finances together and stuff like that. So that's been currently my Big Y. Also, I'm like I said, a millennial and don't have kids and stuff like that. So I think buying a home is going to be a good foundation to kind of let the rest of my whys after that kind of follow, I think. So
well, and that's a really good example of how your why can change, because once you've accomplished that, you'll be on to different things. And sometimes it's more philosophical, sometimes it's something, sometimes it's someone. Anybody else have a big why that you're able to really articulate?
I do.
You do.
So it's written downstairs, but it kind of goes something like this.
I have the same thing.
There's gonna be a day that I no longer walk this earth, and I don't want the memories of me that are left behind of just working to survive. I want to work to create a legacy of memories within my family. And that entails building an empire and building an organization within my team and within EXP to be able to fulfill those dreams and memories that I have to support leaving that legacy of memories with my family.
Awesome. That's awesome. And so what I want to do, I'm going to sort of go through, there's some exercises. We'll talk about what Big Y actually is, how we define it, and then some exercises. And there's a couple of exercises that kind of take some thought. And so it's not something that we can just sit down and do in an hour. And then at the end, when we're all finished with this session, I would love for us all to, if anyone's willing to share what they have articulated as their Big Y after we go through this. And it's a really great exercise. And I know, Venus, you've probably done it because our coaches take us through this a lot. But it changes now and then. And it's something that is so important. 2 reasons. Well, there's a lot of reasons, but 2 that really come to mind. First of all, the common denominator with highly successful people is a Big Y, something that they're working toward, and being able to articulate that is definitely it's a contribution to your success and being able to be successful. And the other thing is that, the Big Y has been important in all aspects of our life, sometimes where we don't even know it. And Viktor Frankl wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. Maybe you've heard about it. And he talks about the big why in that book is, having a reason to live. It wasn't the how necessarily, but the why. And so it's what motivates us. And it's different for each and every one of us. But basically, it's defined as anything that it inspires you or motivates you to do more, go higher, reach further, or otherwise make you better than you would or could be on your own, right? The big why is the catalyst for becoming more in every aspect of your life. So it's who you were meant to be and who you were created to be. And sometimes that is a hard question to answer. So as I was studying and looking into big why, and we've had different ways of doing this. And at Keller Williams, we used to call it getting the book on somebody, which is really just digging deep into what makes them tick. And I personally, like right now, I'm working on this discovering why, which is interesting because it was written by a realtor named Josh Forrester, and his big why happens to be rescuing children from trafficking. So that's something that was major to him. So it doesn't necessarily have to be something really, really big like that. So the benefits of having a big why. Let's talk a little bit about that. So people that are happy have a better chance of achieving their big why, and people that have a big why have a higher rate of happiness. And so it's whether you achieve your big why because you are happy or because success is born out of happiness, it coincides with pursuing a higher purpose. So happiness. And it was interesting because they did a study of doctors, and they were doing an exercise where they had a group of doctors who were considered to be the happier group and a group of doctors that were the unhappy group. And so they did the same exercise, and the group of doctors that were considered to be in the happier group, they found the diagnosis for the issue within 20% of the exercise being complete. Whereas the unhappy people, but sometimes weren't even able to make the diagnosis at all. So make sure your doctor's happy, first of all, right? But it's interesting that happiness drives our abilities so much. And so when you are, feeling down, got to look at what makes you happy. And that is another benefit of having a really great why. Optimism cuts the rate of coronary disease, heart disease in half. So it's a health issue too. People who have a reason to live keep on living and at a longer time and with more quality of life. So that's really where your big why comes in. It's our reason for doing everything that we do. Another statistic that's interesting is happy employees are 12% more productive. Unhappy employees are 10% less productive. And so it's important to really gauge where your happiness quotient is, and the people that are working with you, right? Like right? It's simple. So enthusiasm is another quality, the power of enthusiasm. And I'll give you an example. So your enthusiasm. So let's say you're at a high school reunion and somebody says to you, "So what are you doing now?" And you say, "Oh, I'm a computer programmer." Say, "Cool, how is that?" "It pays the bills." Okay, so that sounds real great, right? Like you're really enthusiastic about your job and somebody really needs to learn from you. Now let's look how that could have gone. So I said, "So what are you doing now?" "I'm a computer programmer." "Well, cool, how is that?" It's okay, but lets me do what I'm really passionate about. You want to hear about it? And so then it opens the door for enthusiasm. People want to be around enthusiastic people. So you got to be enthusiastic about whatever your big why is that you're doing. And, like yours, Nick, being able to get into a homeowner situation is perfect for our industry, right? That's and having that enthusiasm and helping other people get enthusiastic about that too. So who's excited to meet you and who wants to know what you have to say? Right? Sort of a question we have to answer to ourselves every single day. But you got to tell your story. And Venus, I love your story. I love your story. You practice it, craft it to perfection, incorporate your big why and how you came to find it. Isn't that kind of what you did when you were on the stage with Tom Ferry talking about what drove you then when you were on the stage, Venus?
No, that one was more about how I accomplished what I've accomplished coming from where I came from.
Okay, but that's not related though. It is related.
It was more, coming from the abuse that I got my life growing up and how I found my success.
I know, but part of one of the exercises that we're going to go through as we do that, as we go through this is remembering your childhood, what you love, channeling your anger and transforming tragedy. So it's all part of the big picture, right? Right. So anyway, I've always thought that you could articulate that really well, Venus.
Thank you.
But it really, what it is just talking about you. So your enthusiasm is contagious. Have you ever noticed, like when you're around depressed people, you feel depressed, right? And when you're around enthusiastic people, you're enthusiastic about what they have to say. And so just even looking at what we're doing here with EXP is our enthusiasm for what we're doing gives us that attractiveness where people want to find out more. And so I've had a lot of people ask me recently how the change has gone and they always say, how do you like it? How, people want to know if you're happy. So feelings of emotions are contagious, and it goes both ways. So if you're around somebody that's negative all the time, they bring you down, right? And people that are positive bring you up. So why not be the positive, happy, enthusiastic person that people want to be around?
Well, and just to jump on this is kind of making me think about the way that we negotiate inspections and stuff like that, and then the way that we coach clients through those things. It's like if you go, sometimes we get into an inspection where we're like, oh my gosh, there's 10 more things than we ever thought that there could ever possibly be in this property, and now we have to work through all this stuff. And you kind of have to work through those emotions in your brain. So when you talk to your client, you're like, hey, so this is great. It's going to be fine. And if you bring that enthusiasm and that positivity to different things, that kind of will be, I really like the fact that you said that it's kind of contagious, and it kind of, people pick up on that. And because when you bring an inspection to a client, you say, okay, well, it looks like we need a new roof, and we're probably going to need to get a structural engineer out there, and the sewer scope was real bad, and it's probably going to be two grand at least for that, and then you start going through that stuff. It's as long as you can find a way of being positive, then they could see something negative and still say, okay, we can work through this, and still be happy. And by the time you're at the closing table, it's not like you're remorseful about, oh, you had to do this or this or this. It's like, well, could have been worse, and look where we are, that kind of thing.
And truly that is reflected in the skills of a good negotiator too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so that is absolutely true. But really seriously, when you think about the things that people want to know about. So your enthusiasm and your happiness draw people in, and they create opportunity for you, right? So what about the reticular response? Are you guys all familiar with that, right? A reticular response is when you have expired license plates, you see everybody else's expired license plates, or you're out looking for a car, a certain kind of car, and all of a sudden you see all those cars on the road everywhere. So your reticular response is the reminder, and it's when you're focused on something that it engages. And so when you think about your big why, if you're focused on your big why, then opportunity is going to find you. Those chance encounters where opportunity was there, if you're not thinking of your big why, or you don't have a focus on that, you might miss it. And so having a defined big why helps you find more opportunity, because your reticular response is going to help you find it. And so that's just another benefit, opportunity. But your big why must be powerful enough to connect you on a deep level. It's got to be something that really drives you, more dominant than anything else that's driving you. That's when you really got to spend some time figuring this out. And I'm just sharing with you what some of the benefits are. The exercises are going to help you find and define your big why. And then being able to actually make it happen is sort of part 3. Believing that you can accomplish it is really important. But the first thing that we tend to do with our self-talk is negative, right? So you think of all the reasons you can't. That's what our brain tends to do. Like, oh, I can't do that because of this or that. And so what with your big why, you're really supposed to put how out the window. That will find its way. If you have your big why, it's going to come and it's going to happen. The
Can I
third
say something about that, Heidi?
Yes, please.
Tony Robbins always says, don't get stuck in the tyranny of how. He
Okay.
says if you know that why, you just keep going towards that why. And I love that, the tyranny of how.
Tyranny of how. I love that too, because it is. And that's what usually tears us down. And we don't succeed because we've convinced ourselves it's not possible. So the tyranny. Yeah.
I needed that reminder this morning too, so thank you.
Well, so generosity, people think you have to give a whole lot of money or this or that. It's not. Generosity is your time. It's whatever you have to give. It can be financial, it can be time, it can be goods, whatever it is that you have. Generosity is important. And when you are generous, it physically takes a toll on you. There are chemicals that are released. Endorphins, dopamine, oxytocin, those are released out of generosity. And actually, the same chemicals that are released when you're eating or you're having a social time or having sex. So you didn't know that paying for somebody's lunch could be the same as having sex, right? No, but seriously, the chemicals are the same. And so generosity is important, but it is more than just financial. Financial is great, and we do need time and money to put toward our efforts, but generosity is just being open with giving. And you're motivated to be more successful, and what success enables you to do, and your generosity propels that. It's not, success isn't something that you become, or something that you achieve. You never achieve it, you become it, right? And it's what you define that. So significance is important. Now, Venus mentions significance and making a huge difference. And you know, when you want to be significant, it's definitely surpasses self with significance. And there are people that have very significant goals as far as changing the world, but you can change the world for one person and it's still significant. So it doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be something that you really care about, right? So what it says, generosity leads to happiness. Those oxytocin and those chemicals help with happiness. And so happiness leads to enthusiasm, which leads to success and significance. And so really, when you look at the big picture, they're all interrelated. Then also the final one, clarity. I see your kitty tail. Clarity is just knowing what's important to you, right? And using your big why to filter every decision you make. So that's why it's really important, because all of the decisions that you're making are either going to bring you closer to what you want or further away. There's really no stagnant, because stagnant just gets you further away. So if you're saying yes to the wrong things, you got to change that, right? And start saying yes to the right things. And sometimes that really creates a lot of discernment. And sometimes it means you have to say no to some things, right? And that can be hard, especially for a giver, saying no. But clarity is most important, so that you know what it is that you're focused on. And then you can use that as a filter for everything that you're doing. And so I say that automatically saying yes to something means that you're saying no to something else, right? Because we all have the same amount of time. And that's why every decision really matters. And having a big why helps you to make those decisions. And so almost every coach or every business plan starts out with the big why, because everything that you do from that point forward is going to be related to that, right? So the big why is not a thing, it's a reason. And now we're going to go into defining your why and the exercises. And then I would welcome any input that anybody has regarding finding little nuggets that really help them. So one of the first exercises, and this is why you need a little time to go through this process, is because you really have to think about it. So your big why usually encompasses 7 different things. So it's going to encompass your occupation, what you do for a living, and how you're able to fund your big why. It's most likely going to involve your family, people around you that can help you support your big why. Physical, you've got to be healthy enough and mentally fit enough to do the right things. So eating right and being healthy is important. Emotional. So, you can pour all the emotion and intellect into your big why and what you're passionate about, but you really, it's got to engage your emotions in order for you to really feel it, right? So you've got to feel it. Spiritual, whether that is with your faith or your spirit, however you see that, it is part of who you are and why you're here. And then of course there's financial. We have to be able to afford to be able to do what we want to do, even if it's not a financial driven big why. We have to have the time and resources to be able to give to that. If your big why is something else, like I know that you do a lot of stuff with Venus, you do a lot of stuff with the foundation out there, and that helps people that are suffering from depression, right? And
It's a
is that
grief counseling, a grief counseling
grief
center.
counseling? Yeah. But I mean, that's huge. That's something that definitely you got to have the time to do it, even if you're not financially, supporting them. And then social. One of the things that I find really interesting is that the people around you will help you to accomplish your big why. And it was funny because as I was reading this book, there's a gentleman called Chris Simmons, and I knew him back in around 2005, 2006. I knew him personally. He worked at our company, but he showed up in this book because he went to another country where there was a lot of he was passionate about sex trafficking also. And so he went to another country where and he was a plant to see if because they said no, it's really not happening as much as you think. So he went as a plant and he went off to this, and he was on the beach, and let's see where he was. Chris was in, it was another country, so let me see here. It was, I think it was Indonesia. Anyhow, he was on the beach and he saw a 9-year-old girl, and he approaches this 9-year-old girl and he starts talking to her, and a man came over to him and he said, no, look at this one. She's not ruined. She's only 6. And then a little boy who was 12 came up to him and said, will you buy me? Please buy me. And that was something. So the reason I only tell you that story is because I knew Chris personally, and we never talked about big why, but I knew of his passion for sex trafficking, because when you're passionate about something, you talk about it, right? And you spread it. So that's the social part where people can help you to achieve your dreams when you get to that point. So here's the exercise to really figure out what's important to you. So you do a couple of things. So one, you pull out your checkbook, your credit card statements, and you look at where your money is going. And that doesn't mean mortgage, rent, utilities, food. That we have to do. Those are living expenses. But your disposable income, where do you put it? When you have it, where do you put your funds? Then look at the same thing with your schedule and look at where you spend your time, because it's going to reveal something to you. Where you spend your money and where you spend your time is usually going to be very closely related to what drives you personally. And if you don't have a big why that you're using as a filter, you're using something as a filter. So that's really helpful to go in and look at where you spend your money and time, and then it gives you some insight onto what's really important about your life and your big why. Then what do you put in your schedule first? That's another thing. Not just where you spend your time, but what do you value first? And then there's the why question. So once you get to the point where you kind of see something that's important to you, you ask yourself, why is this important to me? And this seems simple, but it really helps you go deep. And you keep asking yourself that same question. So once you answer, why is that important to you? Then you ask it again. Why is that important to you? And you keep drilling down until you really have something that is part of your core of what you value. And it's just answering that question to yourself. But sometimes it takes some time. So that's your exercise. Looking at your checkbook, looking at your time, and then define why is that important to you, and then dig deep on that. That will really help. Then the second exercise is all about your dreams. Did anybody have something they dreamt of as a child that they didn't get to pursue? So you think about that. What kind of dreams did you have? And it says, go no filter here. It doesn't matter. Whatever you were thinking, this is just for you. Was there a dream that got, stifled or swept under the rug, something that just didn't seem to work? Did a parent or a teacher or somebody talk you into, that's not going to work, and so you gave up on a dream? That's very possible that could have happened. So think about those things. That's this exercise. And some people, they look at the way things are and they say, why? And then you can turn that around and look at the way that you want it to be and say, why not? Right. So those are two exercises for you guys. Think about where you're spending money, where you're spending your time, and what it is that really gets you going. What do you feel passionate about? Did you have a dream in your life that you weren't able to get to? And Chris talks about the emotions in this book and how he felt emotionally when that 12-year-old boy asked him if he would buy him. And his life was never the same. But what I thought was interesting, that was his big why. And I read it in this book, but that's something I always knew about him. So sharing that is part of it. And your big why has to be strong enough that it guides you to talk with people about it, and to really narrow down your thinking to get that third party input. I think that's super important. And a lot of the exercises that we do, they have you do it and then they have somebody else think about it too. So go to your family, people that know you really well, and ask them the same question. What do you seem passionate about? What really seems to make you tick? Because people around you will be able to help with that. So let's talk just for a minute. Does anything resonate with you? Any past dreams or anything that you're feeling, where you spend your time and money?
Yeah, so this is something that I've talked about, especially with you, Heidi, over the last few years. Some of the places where my money goes most. Recently, travel actually has been a big thing. But I buy 2 musical instruments every single year, at least. So that's like a big thing for me. And like my dream when I was a kid is I wanted to be a professional musician. So I need to kind of figure out how to make sense of that a little bit. but yeah, that's just something that I've been trying to think about and trying to figure out. Maybe I just want to keep playing music my whole life. I don't know. But
well, maybe you can channel it into something that will really help you, and your real estate can help fund that.
yeah. Well, that's what I've been thinking. Real estate is definitely going to help fund it, even if it just stays a hobby. That I've always said as when I was younger, when I realized I probably wasn't going to be going to college for music and stuff like that, I realized that at the very least I wanted to gather as many ideally antique but still working instruments as possible. This year I finally got my first antique instrument. It's a Irish banjo, but yeah, so it's definitely going to fund that. So maybe the more houses I sell, the more instruments I could buy, and maybe buy a house eventually that has a room big enough for a bunch of dusty old instruments that are
There you go. Yeah.
So it's incorporated in there. I don't know where it is, but that's definitely going to be incorporated in there somewhere.
Hence the exercise, because I really think about that. I was
Exactly.
thinking about this, when I was a senior in high school, I was going to be a teacher, and I came home. I was so excited to tell my family I was going to be a teacher. My dad shut me down. He's like, absolutely not. They don't
Well,
make enough money.
yeah, I was
And
going to
look
say
at me
you're
now.
essentially you're just the more you're a teacher that actually can pay their bills because you sell houses.
Well, right now there's such a shortage of teachers. I think they're getting kind of a premium, but no, seriously, it's something that you have to look back on. So I look at my life, and I still have a passion for teaching, though. And so it's something that you can look back on those experiences, and it's early on. So you've got them, and something is driving everything that you do every day.
Yeah, well, and it shows your example too. Kind of shows how some of these past dreams can actually be very compatible with our current realities and our current professions and stuff. Because you have a passion for teaching, and I got to say, it makes complete sense to me because you've been teaching me things for 6 years. So yeah, I mean, truly, it's one of those things. So it shows that depending on your dreams, some of these things can be very compatible, and you can really harness kind of some of that passion for doing things like you do. Like, you always constantly work at learning more about what's going on in the industry, what's going on with RE Colorado, what's going on with this, that, and the next thing. And so that's your passion for teaching taking over, saying, okay, here's time for me to learn this because we've got our coaching thing, or whatever that is. And so I just have to figure out how music is relevant to any of that. But it's cool that some of these passions can be compatible with real estate.
Well said. I think it's true. But I mean, honestly, our industry is in a mess right now. It is, because you've got some people that are saying one thing, other people that are saying a complete different thing. We've got our realtor associations that aren't even planning for the 20 to 40% realtor loss that we're going to have. And so, there's definitely some heads in the sand. But we're the survivors, you guys. That's why we're doing what we do. We are focused on surviving, and we've been through this before. We've been through the ups and the downs several times. And so going back to your big why, though, it's something that you revisit. You revisit usually every year. You're looking at it and trying to make adjustments. And I know mine changed from when I was at Remax to when I came over to EXP, because my big why at Remax was I want to quit. And my big why here is I want to do better. Big difference. but so what are some of the things you're passionate about? Just everybody share a little bit.
Travel.
I was thinking about you in that this morning, Venus. Yes, travel. And so I think that if you don't have your next trip planned, that it's really hard to get excited about all of the frog eating that we have to do, because travel is one of mine too. So do you have your next trip planned?
We do.
Where are you going?
We're going to New Orleans for our anniversary in April.
Awesome.
Then we have Salida booked for July, so we got to sell some houses here.
Got it. That's how we fund our big why, right?
Right.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, well, we were going to go to Florida in February, but we found out that Michael's sister rented the house. So I guess we're not going to do that.
Oh, no.
He's like, Michael, maybe they should say something to you. But it's good because it's not being used, so they'll recoup some costs. So that's good. But travel is really good. Anybody else? Something that you're really passionate about? Kristen, come.
Well, I don't think it's very useful. Like, my passion's always been like helping others, like, how my whole life was dedicated like to PTA before I started working. Then working came, and anything I could do. So I really don't know what it is for me yet, because that's all I thrive on, is helping others do better.
Well, why is that important to you? So you got to answer and dig deeper on that one. Because that is a great big why. We need more people like you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I had written down helping others, traveling, and then more family time. So that's why I'm here at my sister's.
Right.
But working towards that, and then something that I also wrote down was having successes. So like if I set goals, being able to check off the list and crumple it up and throw it away, that kind of motivates me towards wanting to get things done.
Cool.
Keeps me happy when I feel like I've achieved what I've set out for the day. Now, does it always go that way? No, sometimes they make it onto tomorrow's list.
That happens all the time to me.
Eventually they get gotten, and once they're gone, then I feel pretty good about things. So and I don't know, I know that can be a little shallow when you say having success, because everyone has different opinions of what success is, but that's kind of how I view success. It's just kind of always putting one foot forward, or like we've heard other people say, improving 1% a day.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I try to motivate myself in the mornings.
That's awesome. I actually used that 1% with Michael's mom the other day.
Oh, nice.
We were out visiting her, and because she's really doing better, but she doesn't think it's good enough. So I used the 1% with her, and I think she kind of articulated that pretty well. Passion. Anybody else? I have a passion for being outside. I think it's weird, but it is true. And I read different things about how being outside can change your point of view, help you with thinking, being creative, and it can help overcome tragedy also, which I never, ever was a person that strove to be outside all the time until tragedy struck. And even my favorite seasons changed. I used to love fall and Christmas, and they're still great, but they're not my favorite anymore because it gets dark and keeps me from going outside. So that's my thing. I mean, it's got to be related, right? It's big to me. And when I look at my schedule, first thing I'm putting in there is, when are we hiking this week? When are we going to go outside? And it doesn't always happen. And that is something that it doesn't feel good when it doesn't happen. So when you think about your passions that way, and you got to think, what makes you tick? What doesn't feel good? What does feel good? And so those are your exercises. And it's so much, and this is so deep, I didn't want to go any further than this today. So what we're going to talk about though, and I thought I would do part 2. When was I going to do part 2? About a week. We have Venus next week at 9. So I'll send out a notice. You're not next week at 9.
No, I'm at 6. I'm gone next week. So it's on the 16th.
Oh, okay. I have to look at my calendar, make sure I have that in there, which I'll go do here in a second. But we're going to talk about channeling your anger. So what makes you mad? Because that is passion also. Things make you mad. Yeah. Transforming tragedy. Things that have happened in your life that change the trajectory of your life. And your talents. What are you good at? You have some God-given talents that you use, and every single one of us is different and has different gifts, and those are given to us to use them. So what do you love? And remember your childhood. That is, a lot of comes out of childhood. And so as you go through this week, thinking about what's important to you and making, deductions on what makes you tick and helping your big why. Those are things to really focus on. And then once you have your big why in place, then you can really put all the pieces into place to help motivate you to get there and make it happen. And that's going to be the last part that we talk about, how to make it happen, the how part. So anybody else want to contribute anything to Big Why? Anything that stands out? Well, I can say that when people don't have a big why, because they go from thing to thing to thing. And, a lot of people, our industry has a lot of that, people coming and going. They think they're going to just make a bunch of money, and they find out that there's a whole lot more to it than just making money. It actually is a passion for people and helping people that I think makes us most successful. Because if we're just out to help ourselves, that is definitely something that is transparent. People can tell. So anyway, that is all I have today. I look forward to hearing about the things that you come up with this week, what your passions are, where you're spending your time and your money. And then we'll take the next steps. And at the end, we'll be able to articulate for anybody that doesn't already have a big why, will be able to put it out there. And next year, to really focus on that and make it the best year yet, no matter what the economists are saying. Because we're still going to close 4,000 plus deals a month. We still are. So we just have to be the agents doing it, right?
That's right.
Right. Awesome. Well, have a great week, and I will see you guys at our next opportunity. Thank you for your time. Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
I'll send out this recording too. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.